José Clastornik, soy director ejecutivo.
I'm José Clastornik. I'm the executive director of Agesic. This is the agency of e-government and information society of Uruguay. We are dependent on the President's Office of Uruguay, and we coordinate all areas in the state related to e-government, and we are particularly responsible and in charge of the digital agenda and digital government in Uruguay. Last week, an article was published about chatbots.
Ejemplo como para empezar a hablar de su.
And I thought this was a good example. Chatbots in government may seem quite close to a faraway dream. However, if you look at it, the article described a product that was being generated. A consultant in a specialized company were merging in everything that had to do with ERM. And you could say, well, from what was said early this morning, there are people, we can see that there are people working at this locally, but I think it's also important that there are assets in the government that allow us to use chatbots. And so when we are saying that we've got a portal with all the information of all the proceedings and all the steps that are required for a certain proceeding, all the certificates and the places where you can get them and how much they are, and you have a standardization in terms of citizen services and the standards that we use, the call center level, you can say, well, there are assets that I can take advantage of, and so that dreams don't look that much as dreams. So dreams that look like dreams are not that much because we've got digital assets, and that's what I want to refer to in my presentation. Dreaming a digital government is possible. In the keynote speech, Nicolas was talking about the digital transformation, and he was talking about the use of IT and the original engineering process and the change of paradigm, where the whole business model can change. That, in some way, is precisely what I'm talking about. It's marketing of words. Tries to reinforce this idea with the government, with the idea of digital government opposed to electronic government. It was the informatization of processes. Digital government is the one that talks about new paradigms and new technologies, innovation in a more disruptive manner. So the question here is, which is disruptive as the models, is it possible? And then I would like to focus on looking at models and whether, if it's possible, how much we've advanced. Who went through our airport in the past few days using your electronic ID or passport? Well, okay, there are about 10 people here out of all of you who found some changes in our technology. Now, if you have an electronic ID, the new ID or your new passport, and you go through automatic controls at the airport, there, that would take you less than 15 seconds. Everything is automated. You use this ID with biomedical information, an ID with a digital certificate that is compatible with ICANN, and face recognition so that the entire process is recognized. But we are working with assets. It's this. This ID's got two chips, in fact. One is the contact chip, and the other one is without contact, with information, electronic certification and information, and biomedical information, which is here used in a very clear and generates value. Who knows this? All those who heard me, all those who were in my speech at the municipality. All right, that's the traditional window to log in. So far, so good, nothing special. But if I told you that it's structured to work with the tax authority, all right, citizens must connect with 200 institutions along the citizen's life. And in fact, if you include your ID there, you needn't enter all your data whenever you want to contact an organization, because there you have all the information in your ID. I'm not talking about something that's going to happen in the future. All online proceedings are already using the tax revenue services using it, and also the municipalities using it. Why is this important? For instance, how many of you who's got an agreement with Social Security organization to have access to your data? Have you signed a paper? Now, if I enter with my ID and then I sign physically the terms and conditions, my electronic ID, I mean the legal value of my signature, is not only that it's confirmed on any paper, but it's the equivalent of having done it or authenticated by a notary public. So we are structuring an authentication process that will have different other stages that will allow you to go into the different parts of the state. There was a demo as to how to program GeneXus to have access to it. Now, what you can see here, I mean, this is the ID, and just to show you, this is a reader. Now, readers are like a CD. I brought you some to give away. So the idea is to universalize the use. And so from the programming standpoint, you can start programming. What you can see here is something that already exists. I'm not talking about something that pertains to the field of dreams. This is one of the procedures. This is a police report filed, and here the person who made that claim is authenticating it. When I have to say something abroad, I have some ways of presenting my country abroad, and one of the ways is showing you football players, Suarez, and you know. But when I talk about cows, the first thing I have to tell people abroad is that if we are 3 million Uruguayans and we have 3 million electronic IDs, we have 12 million cows. And this means 4 cows per person. And when you see that each one of those cows has a chip, then this is of great impact. Of course, it impacts because of the visible value. The value of cattle tracing at national level, following and tracing the ID of the cow until the cut, the meat cut, the beef cut that is exported, is visualized in the cost of the kilo of meat. There's a very clear value, and that's an added value, which is information included to that beef tray that you buy at a supermarket in Europe, so they can know where that animal was slaughtered and what was the process that followed. The National Cattle Information System is a good challenge. Now, can you imagine having an agricultural information system? We've already got quite a few headaches with marijuana, and that's another story that I'll share with you later on. But if you can envisage the challenge of having a national agricultural information system, you can certainly see that what we have in mind is something enormous. And it's enormous not just because of everything that we trace, but because we are envisaging an information system at all levels. It's not just for something linear, traceability, cattle traceability, but exploitation and regulation linked to information, public policies, evidence-based. For a country where lots of things are missing, I mean, just let me give you an example. When there are certain conditions, when it's too, when the weather is too dry, there is a mechanism that declares emergency areas in the country. In fact, they are declared by non-objective mechanisms. Then we decide that the critical stage has been reached, and then that area is declared in need of support or in need of certain actions by the state. Now we can program that objectively with sensors in the soil. Now, an evidence-based policy can make you do this, and it means having many layers of information, among which geographical information layers. This means thinking of data as an infrastructure. And in this case, it's a space infrastructure data. Right now, we are undergoing a bit of a new generation of data for the state, standardization and cartography that goes beyond what you usually think of. Just to give an example of what we're doing. Now, the important thing here from the conceptualization standpoint is that that project generates data layers that act as an infrastructure for the other apps that we are thinking of. Now, the examples I was sharing with you simply try to show you some examples, but among the examples, you can start envisaging that there is something that goes beyond the very small specific project that we're talking about. There is something that is more complete. And it's important to think that there is a lot of interrelation. And there are three elements that were also discussed earlier today. The question of user experience, integration, and security. And you have to have them everywhere. And this means the conceptualization, clear conceptualization of where we are heading to. And that's what we are doing in our digital government agenda. Let me show it very quickly. And I'll do it quickly because last time I showed you, it took me 2 hours to explain. So, well, each one of these little boxes in my chart would require a presentation. On the left-hand side, you have a more technical chart linked to apps and data models. I mean, the architecture of system architecture in general. On your right, on the right of the screen, you can see a more political conceptualization. And you can see the charts in detail. If I took the example of the chats that we were mentioning earlier, in fact, what we are seeing is that we are adding some artificial intelligence to the channels. We have the web channel, the cell channel, the face-to-face channel, and so on. Now, it's important to have all this separated so that we can work with the different boxes in a different way. Now, if we look at the second layer, which is proceedings, it's the one you have there. Can you see it there? We have to work a lot on that because we've got a project which is to have 100% of all proceedings started digitally this year, and that will be 100% digital by 2020. 100% of all proceedings will be digital, fully digital. So when you visualize these proceedings, you start looking at the volume. It's not 15 projects per year, but 2,000 projects per year. We have to work in an industrialized manner, and we have to understand conceptually the question of proceedings as an area for reform. And GeneXus people have had the experience of the foreign trade single window. And what we're trying to see here is a broader experience regarding the elements included in that platform. The proceedings platform includes the traceability of all proceedings so that we can know at all times where the proceedings are so that you can receive alerts in any specific medium. Standardization, generation, traceability tool, all that forms part of the platform, the same as a BTM, as well as the capacity to make payments or messaging with a legal value. When you say, I would like to serve a notice to someone and say that a certain bid was awarded to you, notifications were usually done by fax, and what we are doing now is to define an e-notification tool with the same legal value as a fax, and that goes to the bidder's email. Ideally, those communications should be unique so that the person receives the right notice at their homes. And that system of electronic communications and notifications, if the structure is correct, would interact with the tool, with the same access tool, so that from the standpoint of the user's experience, access is single, notifications are single, and data are entered and recalled more than once. If you move on with proceedings, and you can see them here, that BPM, that single BPM, is going to work with back office systems, whether they are administrative or accounting, financial, or specific business systems. And those same systems will interact with cross-cutting systems, that is the backbone of public management. For instance, the single suppliers or vendors system, the financial system, the public procurement, all cross-cutting systems that in some way have to interact with the vertical ones that we have here. Now, the availability of data is defined in a common architecture, in the same way as the space architecture, the same way as the individual's record. We should go into a web form and specify the name and the address of the person, and if that information is in the state, you would have one single ID, and that information should be filled in according to the information that the state already has. So part of the platform and data architecture is to have those database updated, as well as to have a web service so that you can update each one of the apps, and in this case, any new proceedings started. Now that is being done. That exists. That's how we are going on and carrying on all these proceedings and services, and we are doing it on an interoperability infrastructure with 100,000 transactions per day. That means that when you say, how do we interoperate with the state in a sufficient and secure? Well, there is one system for interaction. There are 100,000 transactions, 100,000 comings and goings. I don't want to go with this explanation because otherwise it will take me too long. But I think that the important thing here is to understand that you must understand the whole thing, that you have to have a full vision to minimize cost so that all this works in one single way. Now, what do you need to make this work out? Well, of course, I was tempted to include common sense, and as you know, is the least common of all senses. The state is a place where the idea is that because we've done this in this way, we're going to continue doing it in this way, and there are rules and regulations that force us to do it in that way. Now, one of the things that common sense says is, well, if we want to change, why don't we change the laws and rules and regulations to work in the way we are asked to do things now, instead of continue doing what we've done. Now, common sense also means understanding that public management and administration has its door far more open. Public management is not a closed-in place, opaque. It's talking about open governance. It's talking about citizen participation, and it's mainly thinking about how you can interact with citizens so that they can promote innovation. I'm not going to go into the conceptual idea of Uber, but the government could think, and in fact that's already been done in Buenos Aires, they could think about apps whereby things that many users would like to know is to know who is coming, to rank that service and pay, and all that could be done with platforms managed by the government. Or if the government doesn't do it, we could just wait and get someone doing it. The idea is, what's the definition? What's the border? What enables innovation better? Taking into account, and we've got the board of the innovation agency here, to take up all the advantages of entrepreneurship that can come from civil society. And the third point, the third thing I would like to touch upon is that apart from the value, you have to make things happen. You always have to have this capacity of generating projects that can be carried out. We have to be able to carry out, the first thing that shocked me is that projects as a concept were things that were executed, that were done. And to understand that for many people, projects didn't mean doing things was something that still shocks me. So that if you dream of a digital government, it means to innovate, means to take up challenges, it's to try new things, and it's to tolerate mistakes. And it's to dream dream big. Let me tell you how we dream big here. We thought that we could give a notebook, a computer to each child, and we dreamt that there could be connectivity for everyone, and we did it. And we did it between 3 to 7 years. We are now dreaming big. This administration dreams of giving a tablet to everyone who is retired to complete this question of inclusion. People who we hadn't included, and those were our grandparents and the retired. And we also dreamt, and we have the commitment, we've moved forward, to have a national electronic clinical record. And we also dreamt that all proceedings could be online, and we are doing it. We're going to have online proceedings, fully online, including traceability from the central administration, and we would have strengthened the technological areas in this project. Dreaming big includes values, and that's what I wanted to take up from all the projects, the value of inclusion and equity. All our projects started, when we started evaluating the Ceibal plan, because one of the most important things was inclusion. And if you look at all the projects that we are sharing with you, it means that the government has to be close to citizens, including citizens, and a government that gives equity to its population. 10 years ago, we sat down, some of us, to think about a digital government. It was a term that was in fashion then, and we took up the vision of putting in indicators. The idea was to be leaders in the region in these matters. We got that 5 years ago. So for 5 years, we've been releasing digital government indicators, open government, digital inclusion, technical development. But the idea is not to stop dreaming. You always have to have big challenges. You don't have to get tired of having challenges, and to grow on the basis of the success we've had, of the digital assets we've generated, to give something that is good for the people. Thank you for your attention.